announcement. We are open to have private sessions. I am opening new dates on my schedule. We have a brand new automated booking system. No more long waits for confirming the booking. That's right, everyone. Automated booking system is here. Go to andrewbartzis.com and look forward to seeing you in a private session.
Hello everyone, and welcome to this week's Talking Show. So I'd like to firstly welcome my mysterious co-host. I have Laura Massey.
Hi everybody. Hi guys.
And we have the great Amy Kruzic.
Hey everybody.
And we have the mysterious Andrew Bartzis on the show. Hello Andrew.
Meow, meow, meow.
Meow, meow, meow. And we'd like to welcome back this week, we have Deborah Hatswell back onto the show. Hello Deborah.
Hi guys.
Hello, and welcome back. Last week we discussed Bigfoot, and this week we're going to be talking about the paranormal, the hauntings, and UFO as well. So firstly, Deborah, would you like to introduce yourself for those people who are not familiar for what you do? Just a bit about yourself.
My name's Deborah Hatswell, and I live in the northwest of England in the UK. I'm a cryptid and paranormal investigator, but I kind of do it in a different way. I don't go into areas and prove that there's a haunting. I work with the witness themselves with any trauma that they have around those events. And it could be something that happened when they were a child or something that's happening currently. And I work with them to try and put the tools in their hands so they can kind of go forward with it themselves. So I think over the years, I've investigated about 4,000 cases.
And has anything ever surprised you? Like, holy shit. Or is it every day a surprise moment? Like, holy shit.
Yeah. But the video that I sent over earlier to Laura, that almost, well, it just kind of just turns into a hand. I'd never seen anything like that. I've seen lots of paranormal videos, don't get me wrong, I get sent thousands of them, but this was standalone, and I did everything I could to debunk it because I thought there's no way this is real. I don't know if they've done it, but it's not been messed with. It's absolutely, I would say, perfect, really. And it came about by accident, as some of your best cases do, if you get what I mean. I can tell you about the case if you want.
Go ahead. Yeah.
If we go to the Lincolnshire coastline and we head for a very small village called Sutton Bridge, there are two rivers that meet at the estuary, one being the River Nene and one being the River Ouse. And there's one house that stands out there alone. And it's been there since the 1830s. And it was originally built by the Petts family. So the lane is named after them. So forward to March of this year. And a lady called Chrissy reaches out to me, and she's the mum at the house. Now, she's had ongoing activity there since the day she put her foot through the door 23 years ago. But it's like one of those situations where it felt like an old owner or a landowner that was just not happy with what was going on, kind of thing. So she got a team in. A team actually came in 2020, and it kind of ramped things up a little, to the point where one of the male investigators was locked in the bedroom. And Chrissy's first husband, and I'll tell you the story about how they came about the house. It was really strange. But she said he was a lovely man until they moved in there, and it changed his personality completely. And they split up, and he moved out, and he was back to his normal self. And that happened again with a second partner. So I instantly thought, this is something dark and negative that's not happy with other males on the land. So we're going to probably have a predatory male or something like that. And in the UK, you can go back hundreds and hundreds of years with houses. And a lot of maritime houses will have leftovers from the wrecks. And some, let's be honest, are scuttled so that you could get everything off the wrecks. And a lot of that wood and furniture and anything that was stolen would have gone into the building of the house, in the lintels, in the attic, floorboards, shitlap on the wall. Quite natural. That happens all over the world. So in March, she contacted me and said, I've recently put some CCTV into the house and on the outside of the property. My youngest son has autism, and he gets up very early in the morning. And I want to keep him safe. I want to know that he's safe. So it's action. So the minute you go in front of it, it will set off. It will start to tape, and it will record. Motion activated, I should have said. So one day she's expecting a delivery of food, and the CCTV suddenly starts to record. And she thinks, oh, right, the food shop's here, and the dog's going ballistic as per normal. And she goes outside, and there's just nobody. There's nobody there. And the audio seems to have captured some really strange, almost gurgling voices. Now, there is nowhere around the area where this could be interference from. It's not coming in from CB radio. It's not something from the port. It's very different. And I'm not sure if you want to play a clip of it now, but I didn't like it. I'll be honest, I didn't like it.
Okay, Joel, that's the first one actually with the car in it, isn't it, Debbie? It's the one with the mini. Yeah.
Even just 10 or 20 seconds of it, you'll hear it. It's this garbled noise and the sound of rushing water.
It's this one, Joel. I've just said.
I know. So there are 18 minutes of audio like that taken over 4 separate occasions where it's just automatically clicked on and started to record. And she decided, as I would have done, I'm going to go back and look at the CCTV and see if I've captured anything. And she starts to go through it. And she finds the video that's, I think it's a minute long, And you see, now this is a home and it's on the coast, so you will see bugs and you'll see dust and all of malarkey, but there's some like dark shadows that sense they move across this old hallway in the house, and you got lots of light orbs coming through. You see a solitary see-through gentleman really stood at the window looking out, and this hand that turned into an orb. So I think that's the 30-second video, and there's a dog in it. You can see the dog in the kitchen. Chrissy's in there with one of her sons, and the CCTV starts, and about 21 seconds in, if you look on the door jamb, you see an orb, and it changes to a hand, and then it goes away again really quickly.
I think you've got that one there, Joe.
So Deborah,
Did you catch it?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, fingers at the end too on the door. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So rather than go in with a team and stir things up anymore, now there's 3 young boys in the house, so that's my main priority. As long as those children are happy and nothing's happening to them, then let's do this with me and mum rather than ramp things up. So I asked her about the boys and anything that they were doing that was out of the ordinary, and she said that her youngest son had started to draw some very dark images of things that he was seeing on his bedroom. Her older son had drawn a dark figure in the corner that he'd seen. Human shaped, obviously, like I would say more of a shadow being. So I asked Chrissy to tell me her history. I wanted to know what was her connection to that house and the land. And she said to me, it's a funny story how I got this house, Deb. She said, me and my husband were looking for somewhere in rural area because we got the dogs, a first husband, and we wanted somewhere where the dogs could roam free. It was run to rack and ruin, so she's had to do lots of work over the years to bring it back to what it was. And she said when they went to look at the house to buy it, it was owned by a lady called Mrs. Moore. And Mrs. Moore was reluctant to sell it to her. And she said, you seem like a really nice girl and I don't really want to sell it to you. And Chrissy said, it's fine. I've been having strange experiences since I was a baby. It's just kind of normal in my family and it doesn't worry me whatsoever. And Mrs. Moore said, this house is jinxed. I lost my son. My son died on a bike accident at the end of the lane. But Chrissy said she was fine with it, so they agreed to buy the house. So she went to her mum's really excited to tell mum that they'd bought this house. And mum said, oh, you silly girl, you were born in that house. And we had to leave. We left before you were 2 years old because you never settled at any point and you'd be absolutely terrified in your cot as a child. And they sold the house to Mrs. Moore. So she didn't know that. She had no knowledge of that whatsoever. It was like 25 years later. Which is just unbelievable, isn't it, when you think about it? And I said to her, when did you first notice activity? And she said, the first week I moved in. The first week we moved in, we started to see like a tall, dark shadow that was near the pump house. Now, as I said, the house was built in 1830, so was the pump house. So I thought, right, I need to go and look at this. Who owned that land at that point? Who would be this person that was unhappy? And she said, I've always felt like it was almost like a status quo. And he's accepting of me because I care about the house and the land in the same way that he does. And I said, yeah, that makes perfect sense to me. He's putting up with you, but it's hit to him. It's still his home. I said, and that's quite natural. That happens more. But I thought there's more to this. Why the small hand? I mean, Samuel, as I found Samuel, would be a big farmer. This is a small hand. And I kept thinking, no, there's more to this. There's more to this case. And I was getting hint after hint. So I thought, right, get looking, Deb. And I looked and I found a shipwreck, small boat with 9 people on it, that happened the same year that the house was built. It was a lovely day. There was 9 people on board, including the boat pilot, because it has to be, the pilot takes it out the estuary and into the bay. He was 41. His name was Edward Burton, and his son Bernard Burton was on with him. He was 12. And there were some other children on the boat as well. And they were guests that had come from Sheffield to go out and get samphire, and they get some, they get cockles and kippers, and they'd come back in. And unfortunately, the boat sank, and only one lady survived. All souls were lost, including Richard and his son Bernard, and 3 small boys. And I thought, they've gone home to Chrissy's. Chrissy's a mum. There's 3 boys in the house. They're probably really comfortable there. They like it there. We're seeing lots of light orbs, happy, nothing demonic, nothing satanic or anything like that. And I thought, this is tied to family in some way. So between me and Chrissy, we managed to find a newspaper clipping of the actual ship going down, and I sent that to Laura earlier, and it names the people and everything, and it's very sad. And I found over 50 people that had lost their lives either in the bay, on ships that had been named after the bay, or in the river itself, the last one being February this year. So I thought, this is a virtual lighthouse for spirit. So I said to Chrissy, tell me about your earlier experiences. Your mum said you wouldn't settle. She went, I've always seen things, Deb. She said, my Nana Prothero was the same, though. She used to see things like I see. And I thought, this is another case where it runs down the generations. And I thought, I wonder if it connects in any way. It didn't. I was hoping I could connect it to Chrissy, but I couldn't. But I did connect it to the guy who had the original house built. So Chrissy actually went and found his grave, which to me is just unbelievable. And she had a little chat with him, and she explained to him that he could go home anytime he wanted. But if he was comfortable at the house with the boy, she was fine with that as well. And she left him a little teddy bear at the grave, which I just thought was lovely. And I asked her what she did to relax. And she said, I don't anymore, Deb. I'm a mum. I've got 3 boys. I never get to relax. But before I had them, I used to like to sit and sketch. And I said to her, why don't you do that again then? Why don't you get yourself in a comfortable position and just sit and sketch? And the drawing started to come. So there was one that had 2 school caps floating on the water. Another was a young boy you can see he has a smile on his face. When I first saw it, it disturbed me a little bit. I thought, I didn't like it because it was like energy, drawn in energy. But I showed it to my daughter, and my daughter said, you're looking at it with the wrong eye, Mum. Look at it as a mum and a grandmother. And I looked and I thought, he's smiling because his story's been told. He's been recognised. We know him now. We know his name, and he's passed with his father. And that house has been there all of that time. So I think he's anchored there in some way. I think he likes to be there.
So Deb,
yeah.
What protocol do you have for people with dealing with fear then? I know a lot of people come to you and they'll be terrified. What's some of the advice you'd give them, those who are really terrified about living in where they live, where there's something like that?
Number one, that they've survived it already. They've lived it and survived it. And, in this case, nobody's been hurt. There's been nothing satanic or demonic or dark in any way. This is more of a brooding darkness along the lines of, you're a male, get off my property. And I think that's why he's affected the males in the family, So what I tend to do is you've got to triage, you've got to prioritise. So Chrissy's happy, she's fine, she's not scared of anything. The boys are happy and they're fine, they're not scared of anything. So there's no real trauma attached to this one. This is more of a case of looking for an answer. Why has she gone back to that house? The universe has put her there for a reason, She's there for a reason. She's had several miscarriages while she's lived there. She's lost both of her parents while she's lived there. And she said that she feels sometimes that he does actually protect her. She feels like sometimes he feels like her father. So what I did was I went back to ancestry and I looked. And the person who built the house was called George Petts. And if you remember, the boat pilot was called Burton. And George Petts married his sister, Sarah Burton. So the Burtons and the Petts have been meeting in that house since the 1800s. And they probably lived in a smaller building on that land before that, because she did manage to find an old smoke. But if there was trauma involved, one of the best things I can do is sit and listen. So I tend to speak to them like this. And if I can get to them in the car, I'll do that as well. And I'll go and sit down and I just ask them to tell me what happened at the time. So if it's been absolutely terrifying, we need to break it down into smaller problems. So say it's like a poltergeist or a bad activity. I'll normally find a teenager in the house. So I had a report not too long ago from 2 miles away. And they were seeing a devil like fake shadow, really, a silhouette of a shadow on the wall. And Mum had seen it earlier when she was a child. And I said, so have you got any teenagers in the house? She said, yeah, I have. I've got a teenage boy about 14. I said, well, yeah, your energy changes at 14 and it can ramp up activity. I said, and it can be like a torch for anything out there that's interested in energy, whether that be something negative or positive, you know. So what I did in that case, that lowered it for her, because she thought, oh, phew, it's not a devil, you know, it's not satanic, it's probably energy. And if you make it go negative, it will. And if you try and pull it back to the positive side, it will go positive. So I start them on that. When they're comfortable talking about the experience and they're okay with it and they're not upset, then I say, what was the first time you remember having something happen to you that you can't explain, no matter how mundane it may seem to you? Tell me about it. And they usually say, when I was a small child in my bedroom. And I take it from there. And you think these people have been frightened their entire lives. And then I start to play on the strengths. And I say to them, you've been through more than any person I know, you know? And you've done that and still functioned. You've got up, you've gone to work, you've seen to your children, you've paid your bills, you've been a responsible adult, son, brother, uncle, cousin, all of the things that society expects from you. You've managed that and you're still standing. So let's not look at the negative. Let's start looking at the positive of it. You know, you've managed to do this. You've reached out to me. There's always an incident that they reach out to you on. That's the one that broke the camel's back. But when you take it, and Amy will say the same, when you take them back further, there's been a series of events. And over time, people have made them feel silly. Or, it's in your imagination. You're away with the fairies. You're just being dramatic. Some people have ongoing activity from the day they are born till the day that they leave this earth, because it's a natural ability and it's stronger in some than others. So, and the more you accept it, the more it builds.
There's so many amount of times, like, I'd have conversations with my friend, non-spiritual friends who I grew up with, and literally, like, I'd say 90% of the people I talked to had experience when they were younger. They didn't have any spirituality or understanding of spirit now, but as soon as you mention paranormal, ghost and activity when they were younger, 95% of them will mention a story. And they'd be like, there was one friend who had a vicar at the end of the bed grabbing their ankles, just little things like that. And people grow up with that fear, and it's always like it's like locked up for them, isn't it? And obviously people like yourself and these shows are really good because it helps people start telling their own story. What happened to me? Let's talk about it. Let's try and explain the paranormal. Even though we might not know exactly what it is, at least we can actually understand what our reality is like, because it's not all rainbows and butterflies.
I mean, I work with parents that have got small children, toddlers in the room. I worked a case recently. Lily, she won't mind me telling you her name, little Lily. She was seeing a man in a bedroom. He wasn't frightening her, but he was annoying her. He was waking her up. She's 2.5. So he's waking her up and he's annoying her. And obviously it's worrying Mum. So I said to her, he's going to be an old family member or something like that. I said, I'm sure the answers will come. But for now, let's give Lily a stone. You put Lily's stone in Lily's hand and I say to her, right, Lily, that's your stone. You're in charge of your bedroom now. If anybody tries to come into your bedroom, just hold your stone and just say, by the power of this stone, you're not allowed in here. You can't talk to me. Go away. So we've got this little 2.5-year-old child that's trying to tell you what's going on. And she had a speech impediment, as most 2.5-year-olds do. So Mum had to kind of translate for me. But it goes like this. She goes to Mum's what would be her great-grandmother, which is Mum's grandmother. And they're playing in the living room and they're going through all photo albums. And she points at a picture of a man and says, that's him. That's the man. And Mum says, what man? And she goes, the man in my bedroom. And she's like, that man? That's my great-great-grandfather. And she said, yeah, no, he told me. And that's how that case went. So if it had been maybe a different investigator, and they just said, this is very dark, this is demonic, this is satanic, I'm quite sure it had gone awful for the family, you know. And I said to Mum, what have you put in place before you spoke to me? What have you kind of put in place? She said, well, I've gone around the house and I've had a talk to it, and I've said, don't you be going in Lily's room. You're not to be upsetting her. And we've painted it, we've decorated it. I said, well, you did it yourself. You come to it intuitively. You don't need me. You just needed my permission. You know exactly what to do to keep that child safe. When did it start for you? And she said, in my bedroom when I was a kid. So it's generational. It is definitely in that bloodline, and we will trace it back. I tell, if we had all night, I could tell you a story about a werewolf case in Bedfordshire, yeah, that would absolutely blow your mind. And that happened in September last year. It would blow your mind. The rabbit hole it took me down. You know, it's an 88-year-old man, and he was at the end of his life. And I've known him probably 18 years because there's been activity on the land for that amount of time. But I wasn't in touch with him for that. I was in touch with his carer, because his carer kept it all hidden from him. So he didn't know. He didn't have a clue, Laura. He had no idea whatsoever, which is the way we wanted to keep it. So there was like bangs on the house and things running up and down and things on the roof, all manner of scary stuff. So long story short, it's all prairie land. There's a tunnel that goes from there down to where the nunnery was. And there's an old property on it, and someone's got that property, and they've been doing satanic rituals within it and conjuring up all manner of things. So 8th of September, I'm due to go in hospital. I'm actually on a ward in an hospital gown, getting ready to have a procedure, and my phone starts going. And I thought, oh my God, that's he never phones me. It's got to be an emergency. So I answered it, and he said, Debbie, I'm serious. It's a real emergency. I'm so sorry, but Fred's seen something in the middle of the night, and he's terrified. He's absolutely terrified. We don't know what to do. And I said, right, you need to phone the doctor straight away, because it could be an infection, that can happen, you know, at the end of life kind of thing. And he'd done all of that without me suggesting it. So he said to me, will you speak to him? And I said, yeah, of course I will. So that's what I did. I sneaked out to the car and I phoned him. And I said, hi, Freddie, it's Debbie. And we've only ever had conversations before, like me and my granddad. So when I've spoken to him on the phone, he's been, hi, how have you been doing? And how are you doing? And have the cleaners been in? And we just talk like that, you know, what were the new carers like? Never spoke to him about anything paranormal. And he said to me, please, Debbie, I'm so frightened. I'm so frightened. Is he going to come for me and get me? And I said to him, what did you see? And he said, it was a werewolf. There was a werewolf at me window, and it tapped on the window at me. So I said to him, right, let me ask you some questions. And I asked him if he was Irish, of Irish descent. And he said, yeah, both of his parents were Irish. I asked him what had changed, what was different about that night than any of the others. And he said he couldn't do the stairs anymore. So the carers had brought his bread downstairs to the living room, and they hadn't clicked the curtains on yet. So normally he would be upstairs. The other thing I asked him was, had he been thinking about his death? And he said, yeah, I have. I've had the solicitors out, you know, I'm getting all my things in order and everything. And I said to him, it's quite normal when you get to the end of your life that you connect more with the non-human world. But I knew there was probably more into it than that. And I said to him, are you worried? Most people, when they pass over, are worried about something they've done early on, and, you know, you might not go to the right place. And he said, yeah, I am. I was raised a Catholic. I'm worried about all kinds of things. And I said to him, that's quite normal as well. I said, have you ever heard of the Irish death wolf? And he was like, no. I said, it's not a bad thing. It's not like a shock or anything like that. I said, there's the old legend of Ossian. And if you're of Irish descent, no matter where you are in the world, at times of illness and sickness, it will come to protect you, really. To what they call it, the wolf that walks you home. So it tends to come at the end of life. So some people will see it as like a bad omen, but it really isn't there to take them. You know, it's there because they're connected to it somehow in some way. And I asked him to describe it to me, and he described it amazingly well. He said it had a long snout, it had turning ears. Now we're talking about a stockman. He's worked on a farm his entire life, his absolute entire life. So he knows his animals. So when he's seeing something like that, I'm standing up and thinking, I need to listen to what he's telling me. But he did go into hospital, and he did have an infection. And if he hadn't have seen that thing at the window, they wouldn't have known that he had this. He was always borderline sepsis, and they wouldn't have known. And he did come home. His last wish was he wanted to come home and die there with his dog and his life, and that's exactly what happened. You know, January, he passed away in January.
And you see it as well, like obviously a bit different, but people with illnesses go through that word hallucination, which isn't a hallucination. It's just them in that right space to be able to see the unseen world and who's around them. And I remember loads of times in fever going into loads of different realms, walking around, seeing different beings. And I came out of it, and my mum was like, you were just talking and walking around the room, talking to people, like completely gone. And she actually got a video of me like walking around the room, talking to someone. And I was like in this other world. And I was like sat down talking. And my brother, I finally came back and I ended up on my bed. And I was like, where have I been? My brother's like, you were walking around for about an hour talking. I was like, and I remember
Just up for 1 minute. There's something I want to show you.
I wonder if it's partly through trauma, through being ill, some of your body actually leaves. You know, like when people have PTSD, a lot of them leaves but a lot of their light body or energy goes. And therefore you are walking in other realms, aren't you, before you call it all back in?
That's it, yeah.
His carer sat down and chatted with him about it and kind of filmed the interview so that I could hear it from Fred's point of view as quickly as possible. So that was done within about 5 or 6 hours. And I mentioned, I said, you know the horse presses that you've got on your fire? I said, when I was a little girl, I used to get 2 and 6 off my granny for shining them. And he actually he left them there. I've got 5 of them. And I absolutely treasure them. I've always treasured them for the rest of the time. So people say, oh, Deborah, you must be absolutely, you must make an awful lot of money. Don't make a penny. I'm absolute pauper. Yeah, but I'm rich, I'm rich in other ways. But I'll be friends now with his carer for the rest of my life because we've been through that together. And then he then has the trauma of Fred's past. So he's been Fred's carer for 20 years and shaped his life around him. So now he's got to go out. So he's now, and I think it's absolutely amazing, he's going around the UK looking at all the places where my strange cases have come from and doing investigations there, which I think is absolutely wonderful.
Deborah, I have a question. Is the paranormal activity mostly visual, or how do other people sense it? Because sometimes I feel either I'm sleeping, I feel as though somebody's sitting on the edge of my bed. I feel that compression. So
I think it's different for each of us. I think for some it's audible, and for some it's visual, and for some it's a knowing. Mm-hmm. Some it's a dream state. I honestly believe, Amy, my entire research has led me to when you are completely relaxed and an autopilot, you use the peripheral part of your brain, not your 2024 brain. And that peripheral part of your brain kept you alive back in the day. Before verbal communication, we had to communicate some way between ourselves, It kept you alive. It's your gut instincts. It's all of those things. So when you're relaxed at night and you're in that relaxed state, if it's something that's sitting on the end of the bed, what does it feel like? What's the feel that you get from it?
It's like, oh, somebody's there. It feels like somebody's sitting on the edge of my bed.
But you're not frightened. You're not scared.
No, I'm not. But as a child, I do remember being Catholic, we had in my bedroom, I shared a bedroom, so I have many siblings. Mm-hmm. But there was a picture on the wall. If you remember the guardian angel picture with the 2 kids walking across the bridge?
Yeah.
Okay, so I remember that almost as 3D, like coming alive. Okay. Yeah. I didn't think of anything about it. I just thought, oh, wow. That's kind of all. I didn't do anything more with it.
Mm. You might be able to tune in, then have a chat with it. The next time you feel it, sit on the bottom of the bed, say, why do you keep visiting? Mm-hmm. It could be a relative, it could be a guide.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and just have a general conversation with it, and usually the answer will come at some point along the way.
But as a child, what about the picture that I saw kind of move?
You probably did see the picture move. I've worked with a number of children that have said And me myself, something came out of the wall. It used to terrify me, absolutely terrify me. And it was like it was made of the wall, and it just kind of came out. You know, I think when we're very, very young, we are still seeing and experiencing this world that is around us that we don't see as adults, you know. And I think you can tune in as a child. You know, remember daydreaming, and people say, no, don't daydream, you know, don't zone out. That's meditation. You know, that's so you're allowed to like daydream, you know. But pardon me, by the time you're about 4 or 5, anything strange that happened, people will probably have told you it was a nightmare or it was a trick of the light. And you just learn to dismiss it. Well, I've said it last week, but the only animal on this planet that doubts our own instinct. There's another animal on this planet that has a thought and goes, oh no, I'll reason that away. Society trained us to do that, you know. Society trained us to do that. I would imagine it's somebody who loves you, Amy, and they are there just to be, you know.
Yeah, and also, what about sleepwalking in the middle? Like kids, especially my kids used to sleepwalk, and I would just take them back to bed, like guide them back.
A lot of children do that. I haven't worked any cases with sleepwalking children. I know my dad said when I was little, he came in the bedroom and I was sat up and I was speaking German. I would have been about 5 or 6 at the time. And I said to him, how did you know it was German? And he went, I don't know, actually. But you were definitely sat up and you were speaking German. And 2 years ago, I had my DNA done. So it'll be 52 years later. And I'm bloody German. Yeah. Part of my heritage is German. And I thought, is that genetic memory? Because you've got to try and reason it away, haven't you? Like, whoa, but that led me down a whole other rabbit hole of paranormal cousins. They just came out of the woodwork. I've got a cousin who's got an Oscar, Nathan, and he said to me, Deb, can I ask you something? I'd never met him. It was the first time we kind of spoke. And he said, have you ever had any strange paranormal experiences? And I went, yeah, actually, my job. Every single one of them had a story to tell. Every single one of them. My grandmother was one of 10, and every single one of the children that came off those 10 had paranormal, but they were all different, Amy. For some, feeling things would touch them in the bed. For others, it was just a general knowing, like something was about to happen or the dog was going to get ill. For others, it was full on. One of them said, oh, do you remember when kids used to sleep over at our house and they'd run out screaming? Like, I've been this weirdo my entire life on my own, thinking it's only me experiencing this. And each and every one of my cousins have gone through it, and each and every one of their parents. And you're thinking, this must run in our family lines. It must do. All of a story to tell otherwise, can we?
Do you get people talking about sleep deprivation to you, like cases and stuff?
Shadow beings at the side of the bed, or paralysis, complete paralysis and terror.
I had that when I was younger. It's like a haunting experience. I was in a very haunted house, and as I woke up, there was arms around my neck. But as I grabbed the arms, it was like I'm grabbing my arms now. And I remember feeling all the body, and I remember being scared. But then this was like 15, 16 years ago. But I remember thinking, if it happens again, I've got a way out of this. So it happened again, and I remember just like really going out my body and going out of it and just getting away from it. It was really funny because it felt like it was a ghost trying to get me to be scared, to feed off my fear. And I remember saying to it, you're not going to get me now because I'm going, without me going, oh shit, oh no, I'm scared.
Well, that's what it wants you to do, isn't it? It's that that's what it wants from you. You did it intuitively. You've took yourself out of that situation and you've done it intuitively, haven't you? You know, and it's the same as any attack from anything. You know, we do what self-preservation kicks in, and without thinking, we do what we need to do to extract ourselves from that situation. And you've done that naturally. So you should explore on that. You should push the boundaries of that and see what you can do with it.
And sometimes stuff comes to you in dreams as well, doesn't it? Because in this flat I'm in at the moment, when I moved in, I kept getting this dream of a teenage boy who'd been run over. And then I realised in the end, he took me out to my hallway here. This is all in the dream. And I could see he needed help. And because I've done some shamanic training and so on with Andrew, well, quite a lot. I one evening I went and we create like a sacred space. Other people do it differently. We create like a rainbow bridge or something like that. Some people create a golden doorway, but whatever. I just spoke out loud to him, said some prayers, took him by the hand and helped him over his rainbow bridge and called in his ancestors to come and get him. And I felt afterwards that I'd done a really nice thing, because he was obviously stuck and he was obviously really distressed and trying to get my attention, but I wasn't seeing it in daylight, or, you know, when I was awake. The only time I could actually feel it and get what the problem was when I was asleep. So, but either way, it doesn't matter, does it? If they are going to try and reach out to you, I think, if you know, because to them, they're still, he either lived here or he was in the area.
Yeah, and you're like a torch, or like a literal lighthouse. So any being that's out there who's in need, I think some people struggle. One of the hardest things to accept is that you're actually having these experiences. So once you can get somebody to trust that you know, they're not crazy, it's not all in the head, it's not an hallucination, and they get kind of better with it, it becomes less and less scary. And I think as you've crossed him over, you've given him the option to go, you know. I just think he's recognised your energy. So if there's anything out there wandering alone, that's where it's going to head. It's going to head to the light, you know.
It's like this. It's like he looked for someone who could give him resolve and actually connect to him. And he's like, oh, there's actually someone who can actually connect to me and actually know I'm real and so on.
The dead are like us. They just want their story told. And some of them don't know that they've passed. They've no idea that they've passed, and they're in as much confusion as you are, and they don't know how to communicate. They don't know what to do. I mean, they've passed over. Nobody gives you a book on that, do they? And you know, and so it's like, for me, it's always been, I've always seen kind of shadows out of my peripheral. I don't see full on spirit or anything like that. Once when I was with my husband, but that's it. I always see something kind of on my peripheral, and I'm so used to it now. If I'm working, I'll say, no, not today, not today. But, you know, I will make sure I always sit down. I have a little ritual what I go through myself, like my protections. And then I'll sit down, like say tomorrow, if it's nice, I'll go outside in the garden, I'll sit on the bench and I'll just close my mind down and I'll say, right, show me where to go next. Show me what I'm supposed to do next. So a lot of people, when they admit that they're having these experiences, they make the mistake, like I did, of going, right, I'm ready. Ask me what you need of me. Let me know. And it just comes like a freight train, thousands of them at once. So another thing I'll work with them for is saying, like, no, it has to be balanced. It has to fit within your life, and you have to do it when you want to do it. You've got to learn when to turn it on and turn it off, or you'll be like a battery 24 hours a day. You'll end up drained, you'll be dead ill, all of those things that come with that, sleep deprivation, the whole 9 yards. So I just take some time to sit down, you know, and you get it eventually. It's just like riding a bike. Eventually you'll be doing wheelies.
And that's it. It's about, like, sometimes you can't help everyone, because I experienced that once on a motorway at night. I must have saw about 9 different ghosts or spirits coming to ask me to cross them over. And as I was driving to the next point, I could see the next phase. I just said to him, look, I can't do this. Leave me alone. I'm really sorry, but I'm driving. I can't do this. But you could tell, like, motorways are haunted as fuck because of people who died there. They're literally floating around, not even realise they're dead. So I had experience of that, and it was like, what the fuck? I was like, this motorway, the A1.
I mean, it's worse for me because a lot of cryptid reports are along the motorways. So anywhere where Mark chooses for us to go camping, I can go, oh no, there's a dogman report there. Oh no, you know, there's a strange picture report down there. That's just like really to the back of my mind when I'm traveling, because I like to do everything blind. Me, when I get a case coming and say, don't tell me anything, don't tell me anything. I want to get it myself and make sure I'm getting it right. It validates me.
Yes.
And it validates the person. So like with Chrissy, the lady at the house when it was haunted, she didn't need me. She just needed to know that she was doing the right thing. You know, she just needed somebody to say to her, no, you're doing the right thing. So we had a private chat about 2 weeks ago. People are saying, so what's happening now, Deb? What's going on? And I said, nothing's happening now. Chrissy's quite comfortable doing what she's doing. She started to do automatic writing. She's happy with that, and she's passing them over one at a time as they come. And she needs to do that privately without anybody interfering with that. So she will either give me an update or she won't. It'll roll out as it should. The most important thing from that case was getting her comfortable in the house, comfortable with her own abilities, and then getting her to expand them and saying, these ghosts are coming to you for a reason. So we can either let it go dark and plague you, or you can say, right, get in a queue and we'll do you one at a time. And that's that. She's happy with that. Everyone's happy, and that's the way it will roll. And then I'm like the littlest hobo. I went on to my next case, which has just took me down another rabbit hole.
Oh, I have a question about well, a couple questions. So you're kind of like a helper, a moderator. You moderate because does Chrissy has to do it themselves? Yeah.
Yeah.
They have to do. You can't come in and do everything for her. Okay. I was a coach. Okay.
Yeah, I could do, but then I'd be running all around the country doing this for people, and I wouldn't.
Right.
I believe that within each and every one of us, you can solve it yourself. You can, once you start to accept that it is happening around you, we look at the evidence between it. If they want me to bring a team in, I will. If they say to me, Deb, I want you to come in, and I say, right, okay, and I'll get a team together. What I tend to do is I look for a paranormal team that's already set up in that area, because that's much better. They can communicate daily. They get all the time that they need with the witness in and out of the house, getting whatever that witness is comfortable with, from a private conversation and nothing more, right the way through to a full investigation. I will try and facilitate that as best as I can. But I honestly believe it works like give a man a fish and he'll eat for a day. I think if you can give them the tools, and I have little groups set up so I can say to them, look, there's a number of ladies here who've gone through the same thing as you. Do you want to jump in and have a chat with them and read back through the chat and see their experiences and see how normal it is? The more we normalise this, Amy, the more we can talk about it at a book club or when we're pushing the pram as a young mum going to school. A normal conversation, you start to feel less weird and less crazy. And it's the same way that it's okay to see a ghost and it's okay to see a UFO. But if you see a cryptid creature of any kind, no, don't want to deal with that. You must be absolutely crackers. But back in the day, you were considered crackers if you saw a ghost.
Yes.
But it's accepted now. So you were seen as a lunatic in the 70s if you saw a UFO. But it's accepted now. And I want that for the trauma. Everybody loves the exciting bit, but they forget about that witness. That witness is there when they go home.
Yeah.
And they still have to deal with this once the TV show and they move, And I noticed that earlier on in my career. I was thinking we need to be checking back in with these people. We need to be making sure over the next 3 to 6 months it doesn't suddenly go dark on them. We need to make sure. And that's it was so hard when I came forward with my experiences. I just thought, nobody's ever slamming a door in my face again. I'm not having it. I'm going to make, I'm going to make a place where it's okay to just have a coffee and say, tell us about your weird experiences, and I'll tell you about my weird experiences. And people open up, they blossom. The validation that they get is like, oh, thank God, it's not just
Did you? Sorry, Amy, go ahead.
Go ahead. I just had the other question, and maybe you answered this in your other interview with the talking stick. But what was your most interesting question or case that you had that really left you like, wow?
Did you just commenting to him?
The thing that there's one I'm working at the moment that's
I don't know if you can reveal. It's okay if you can't reveal.
No, it's fine. It's absolutely fine. I'm pre-working it, so I've sent everything over. What I do is the report comes in, I speak to the witness, and I'll say to them, do you want me to interview you or do you want me to transcribe the call? So with this guy, it was transcribe the call, but he did have quite a lot of information. I said earlier that I think cases run in families. And I also think it's the same for land, Amy. So I think if your family have lived on that land for a very long time, you're connected to it in a way different to me, you just come in for that day. So you're going to notice all the subtle nuances that are different. So this chap was, his grandfather lived on the land, they farmed the land, their entire lives. He ate from the land, proper outdoorsy. And there used to be the area is called Biddulph. It's in Stoke-on-Trent in England. So our version of Skinwalker Ranch would be Cannock Chase. Well, this is within a short drive of Cannock Chase, and it's also surrounded by lots of other strange reports. So one night he's walking with the dog. A farmer had some foxes, so he was going out to set some traps to keep them off the land. So he's walking with the dog, and he said the path's made of lime, so you can see it. Even though he said it was, I've got to get it right. It was 1980, just after the autumn equinox, so it was a harvest moon. And he said you could see the path in the moon. It was beautiful. I'm stood on the bridge and I'm looking at this amazing thing, and it's absolutely gorgeous. And something dropped from the tree, thud. You could feel it, like really feel it. So to cut a long story short, I thought, I wonder what Biddulph means. And I asked him what he thought it was, and I said to him, there are a lot of reports in the area of like dogman-like creatures and things like that. And he said it could have been, it looked like a bear. As it went across the field, it was down on all fours. You know, well, we don't have bear in the UK. So I looked up Biddulph. I'm thinking, right, let's go and have a look. And in Anglo-Saxon, it says like, it's bide by the digging. So basically like a quarry. But Anglo-Saxons didn't come here till the 6th century. So I'm thinking, I'll go back into Old English. And in Old English, bide... Biddulph translates as a man who lives next to the wolf. So he said to me, oh, they've got a crest of arms. Do you want to see it? And I said, yeah. And there's a wounded wolf on it. There's a wolf with an arrow in its arm. So it's been really, really interesting kind of working that case, if you get what I mean.
Wow.
You know, but it's very new. But I'm trying to think, there's some older ones. I've worked so many interesting...
Yeah, you probably did. I know. And what about the coat of arms? Because I know, what is our family crest?
So if you are in the UK, we have a system, don't we? So you have the aristocracy at the top. It's like the royals and barons and dukes and lords, and they will have family crest, and that's probably made like the 10th century or something. And I forgot a little bit. They also have a motto that got popular about the 17th century. And their motto was, we seek for higher things, which I thought was interesting, quite strange. Normally it's like battle cry, isn't it? Or, you know, seize the day. But we seek for higher things. And each family, if you go back in generations, will have a distinct crest just for them, you know?
Yeah, I have one.
So,
yeah.
So I have a lot of like ladies in my... ancestors that fell for curly-haired gypsy boys and ran off and lost their titles. So by the time you get down to me, you know, those titles are not there anymore, but they were back in time. And I just think it fascinates me that I was also looking at my female ancestors going back in time, and a lot of them had been... I'm related to a famous witch in Ireland called Mary Butters. She was a Carnmoney witch. But I'm also related to a number of other witches, and I don't think they were witches. I think they were just like me and my cousin. I think they were just very intuitive, and one of them would kind of predict. Mary would kind of predict, but the cattle were going to die. So when they did die, she was seen as a witch, or like she caused it, but she was having a prophetic dream, and that dream was saying to her, the animals are going to, you know. And I worked with a lady just last month who said the same thing to me, Amy. Exactly the same thing to me. She said when she was a little girl, she dreamt that the cattle were all dead in the field. And within about 3 or 4 days, the cattle were all dead in the field. So we've gone from the 16th century, right, probably 1980s. And she lives once again in a little farm in the middle of nowhere, gone back generations, lives with her father. She was walking the dog one day about 20 years ago, and she was walking down an old cart track. And I said to her, what were you doing? She went, nothing. The dogs were just, you know, it was lovely. It was a lovely day. The dogs were out in front of me. I'm just walking along, looking at the floor. And as she looks up, she sees this thing. She said it was beautiful. It was absolutely beautiful. It was like an orange-coloured wolf down on all fours. And he looked as surprised to see me as I was to see it. He stood up onto 2 legs, and then he vanished, almost like he was sucked into the ether. She said, like when you do a sketch and you rub it out with a rubber, like, he just vanished. So now we're having things at home. So she's a moon bather. She likes to go out and moon bathe. A couple of occasions she has literally felt breath on the back of her neck. She's heard footsteps on the ceiling and on the roof and things like that. But she also says, I don't understand the relationship. I'm absolutely terrified of him, but really curious about him as well. And that's very true to what it's like for people. It was the same for me. What I saw terrified me. But by the time I was in my 30s, I needed answers. So that need for answers overtook the terror. And I could never understand, like, the kind of wanting to know more about him. Was I inviting him in more? So she's going through the things that I went through like 20 years ago. But she's very erudite. She's very, she's a strong woman. She doesn't need me down there on that farm. She's going to deal with it herself. She said, I put cameras out. I thought, right, I'll get you. I'll put cameras out. She said, I was hearing things around the farm. So she said, I've got cameras up everywhere. And I heard him near the window. And I thought, right, I've got you. I've got you on camera. And all you see is just this white flash. It's just like, it's that quick. Yeah. So we're going back in time. And I said to her, I think you tuned into the land. I think you really tuned in. She starts to tell me about Mum. Mum saw something. She said, suddenly, one year, my mum just stopped walking the fields. And when you live in the countryside, you forage. A lot of your food comes from the field. I live right on edge of town, mate, but I'm country folk. So a lot of your foraging and stuff that you do all year round, Mum wasn't doing. So when Daisy came in from seeing it on their farm track, she sat down and said, Mum, I've just seen something that's absolutely unbelievable. And Mum was like, yeah, I know. I know. So, yeah, she'd seen something similar, but probably 20 years before.
Incredible. So why don't we move on to UFO now and talk about some UFO experience for the last half an hour of the show. A lot of people have different experiences look up in the sky. I'd like to just share my experience I had, which was very profound. Around about 8 years ago, I decided to take a walk near Sainsbury's, and I laid on a park bench with my ex-partner at the time. We both laid down, looked up at the stars, and all of a sudden I had to look at this real bright star. And I said, look at this star. And I looked at it for about 10 minutes. And after 10 minutes, the star changed. And you ended up seeing thousands of light crafts coming in. And it was a mothership. And I was looking at the person with me. And I didn't no alcohol or anything. I just said, are you seeing what I'm seeing? He goes, yeah. And it was an actual mothership. And you could see hundreds of crafts coming in and out. And I was like to myself, am I going crazy? I don't know, this shit's real. But it took me ages to actually see it. It was like there was something blocking me seeing it. But I was able to actually unlayer that and go and actually see what it was. It was really, really fascinating.
That's astounding. But how did you feel afterwards?
I felt excited. I felt excited that there was a tiny bit of fear came in, a slight little bit. But I dealt with it, and I was just like, how fucking exciting. And it's inspired me because I was in spirituality at the time, and I was telling loads of my friends about it, and I was like, how fucking cool. And I had someone there to validate it with me. Like,
yeah. You're not crackers because they saw it as well at times. So I've never had a UFO experience, but my husband has. I've only ever seen my husband scared once in his life. He's a big burly Viking. I've only ever seen him, but white. Face was white, absolutely white, and that was only speaking about it. That wasn't the event. We met 20 years ago, so I was 15 when I had my experience in the park, and he was 21 when he had his UFO experience. And for all we knew each other, because we knew each other's families, it's a small town. We didn't get together until about 2005, so I hadn't told him about my scary stuff. I was working under an assumed name. I didn't want anyone to know who I was. I was like, I'd been raised to be ashamed of the things that were happening. So I still kind of stuck in that shame. And we were having that conversation that you have when you're courting and you say like, oh, what's the weirdest thing that's ever happened to you, and all of that. So we both kind of never had the conversation. I didn't say anything to him and he didn't say anything to me. But over time, he realised that I had this online persona. And he said, like, what's all that about? And I said, I counsel people. It's what I do. So I just kind of did that. And then I'd worked out early on that a lot of the experiences were happening around ancient sites. and like ancient burial mounds and things like that. So I explained my theory to him, and I said like I think that a lot of paranormal UFO reports and things like that in these areas of high energy. And he was like, yeah, and he just blew me off. And I thought, he's not like that. That's normally not what he wasn't angry or anything. He just wouldn't have the conversation with me. So I get on my map and I'm looking, and I said to him, oh, I know where we can go. I said, we'll go to the barrow down there near the yew tree, because that's the highest point around here. And his face went white. And he went, no, I'm not going there. And I'd never seen him scared. I was like, what? And he went, oh, I can't go there. I can't go there. And I went, what do you mean? And he went, do you not remember what happened? I was like, no. So he said to me, when I was 21, we live in a really small town. So back then, the shop shut at 9. So if you ran out of anything, you had to walk to the motorway and go to the motorway service station and get, your pint of milk or whatever. So there's Mark and his 3 friends, and they're all about between the ages of 19 and 21. And they're all walking to the garage. And the next thing, they all wake up on top of the barrow, head to head, in a crucifix shape with a light above them. And Mark said the light went zip, 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 and it was gone. The next thing, they're back at home, and they've each got each other's, not what they would have bought from the garage, but like Dale had Laura's stuff and Laura had mine, and I had Amy's, and they're all just kind of stood there drunk. And I said to him, what happened after that? And he went, I don't know. And I went, what do you mean? He went, I don't know. He went, none of us remember. And the next day we were all a bit dazed and tried to talk to each other about it, but it was a conversation none of us wanted to have. 2 of them, I'm not kidding, drank themselves to death over it. One of them watches the sky night and day. And Mark's better now. He's out of that trauma now, because we've gone through it. And like, he's heard me counsel 1 million people, because he's in the house when I do it, and he will recognize a lot of what they say, especially the abductees. And I said to him, what was the scariest part of it? What's the worst part? If I could take one bit away for you, what would it be? And he said, the missing time. I don't know what happened in that hour and a half, and I don't want to know what happened in that hour and a half. And I said, I get that completely, and that's normal. Lots of people. So that kind of got me into the UFO, looking at the experiences, because I wanted to help him. I wanted to help him with that fear. And it ended up very strange, like most of my cases do. I didn't live in this town. I got married early on, and I didn't live here then. He still did. And I moved back here about 96, 97, something like that. And I met up with a few old friends when I moved back here. And one of them said to me, do you remember that night when we were on Gibson Lane and we saw that UFO? And I went, no. And he was like, yeah, we were on Gibson Lane. It was me and you and another girl, and we were walking down, and there was a UFO. I said to him, I've never been down Gibson Lane in my life. And he was like, Debbie, and he got quite, when they get a bit angry, and he got a bit quite insistent. So I said to him, right, where were we going? And he went, I don't know. I said, well, where had we been? And he was like, I don't know. What was the girl called who was with us? He was like, I don't know. I said, see, it didn't happen. It never happened. It was, you must have dreamt it, something like that. And he was insistent. He was absolutely insistent. Then I didn't even live around here then. I didn't even live in this town then. I was a single mum. I lived 10 miles away. And I guarantee you, I was not out at 3 o'clock in the morning, being a single mum having to go up for work. He insisted till the day that he passed that me and him were out on Gibson Lane, which is the farm track, and we saw a UFO with another girl. And I have no memory of that whatsoever.
Wow.
So I don't know who's wrong or who's right. I don't know if it did happen. I don't think it happened. I think it's something that happened to him. And I was probably a simulation of some form.
Wow.
They put him with somebody that he recognises, because I was 10 miles away. I was working. I had a mortgage to pay. It wasn't me.
This reminds me. So there was a story of mine which I've never ever told anybody. I've kept it to myself, and because I felt so bizarre and strange after, and I just thought everyone would think I'm absolutely crazy. So I was staying at a friend's house, and all of a sudden, as I was laid down, there was like this little weird portal which came up, and this grey type being, but it was full of rainbow. It was like a rainbow coloured grey, was stood right beside me, and it would put his finger out, and it was going up and down my body. And it was there for like an hour, and I went to the toilet, and it was following me around the house. And I remember thinking, And I remember waking up the next day and I like shut it off completely. I'm not telling anybody about this. And it actually was, I'd say, maybe not traumatic for me, but like you say, it brought up stuff where I had to block it out. Like I've never told anyone. Yeah, this is the first time I've ever told someone, because I felt like I shouldn't tell people stuff like that because I'm just weird or like what a fucking like.
You're absolutely perfect. You are exactly what Dale is supposed to be. You learn very early on to compartmentalise your trauma, which tells me, Dale, was there any experiences with nightmares when you were a child in your room with a light or anything like that?
There was quite a few. So what I used to do is I used to talk in my sleep loads and have like night terrors and stuff. Like my mum used to come up in the room and I was saying words and noises and like getting up and making noises. Like most nights you just hear me in the other room asleep making all these noises. So I did have those like night terrors. I didn't have much like really negative, nasty stuff. I had loads of dogs and cats in the house at that time. So I felt like a lot of that was those helped out with those experiences. Without them, I think it would have been completely different.
You've been tuning in and out since you were born.
Yes.
What about mum and dad and grandparents? Have they had any experience with any kind of phenomenon?
So my nan died for half an hour or 20 minutes, and she came out of a body and she saw my granddad and she looked at his t-shirt and he had a stain on the back of his shirt. And when she died and went up, she looked at it and she goes, "Colin, you should have bloody washed that top." So as she was going up when she died, she saw that bloody stain on my granddad's face. When she woke up, she said, "Colin, that t-shirt." Like,
that's lovely, that though, isn't it? I'd be brush your hair, man. I think that if you had the opportunity to speak to your ancestors, I think you would find that going back millennia, they've got some form of strange experience. You know, it's you're exactly as you should be, yeah. And like, it's not your fault that other people can't see what you see, and you shouldn't be giving the answers. Just because you have that experience, Dale, doesn't mean you have got any answers for them. You know, you just don't know. And it's people who don't believe or haven't had their own experience, they demand these answers. So what was that? What was that creature? Where did it come from? You know, what did it? You know, this grey. How do they mate? And you think, I don't know. I saw him in my room. I had an experience with him, and then that experience was over. You know, so I just think, let's put the onus back on the others and say, no, you need to explain to me why I'm not seeing, why you're not seeing these things, because we're not the minority. You said it yourself. Everyone you ask, 90% of people will tell you they've had an experience they can't explain. And if they haven't, their auntie has, or their grandma has, or, their uncle has, or their friend. Everybody knows somebody that's had a strange experience. Human beings are a walking EMF meter. And we pick up on that energy at all times as we're walking around.
Wow.
It's nice you talking about the ancestors, because Amy, Dale and I do a lot of like ancestral work in our like shamanic practice.
That's where you're at. So if there's anybody out there at the minute and they're not sure how to go forward, but you think it's something ancestral, then Laura's the person you need to talk to. Because well, it is, isn't it? That's what we do. That's how I see. So getting in touch with you, things like angels, and I haven't had any experience with that kind of activity. So I get a bit lost when people say that to me, and I think, I can't help them. So it's great to like, new connections where you can send them over and say that I think Amy and Dale are probably you need to speak to, or you need to speak to Laura or Andrew, because yourself, there's so many people having so many different kinds of experiences out there. Yes. And a chap said to me, "Debbie, where do you start and where does it end?"
Yeah, exactly. I think you can have more positive experiences. I would just, in my own experience, say, maybe don't use a Ouija board to start with, because you don't know what you're calling it, right? That is, for me, that is just a no, don't use that. And to get a positive experience, we give offerings to the ancestors of the land, whether it's somewhere we're visiting or when I moved in here or any new place I go to, even if it's like an apple. I go out on the land and I talk to the ancestor. I know this isn't foreign to you, Debbie. You would totally get this. I go out, say a prayer, say that we come in equal co-creation is some of the words we use. In other words, you know, we can coexist here because we actually recognize that they're living on another dimension in the same space. They're not miles away. They're here. And they were living here probably before I lived here. So they're still trying to carry on doing what they do in their dimension. And it's just recognizing them so that they don't hide your car keys and do things like mischievous things like that. So a little story. My son moved into a bungalow and they had all sorts of things, like his wife would put a cake in the oven, take it out, and the middle bit of the cake would go missing, or doors would slam in the night and so on. And David wasn't terribly into this, but he wasn't scared. So I just said, you actually need to not confront, but speak to them in a kind way, but a firm way. And when it started happening in the middle of the night, because there were 3 kids there, he got up. I got to hand it to him because he wasn't really into this. He got up and he spoke kindly to them, but said, we have to share this space. But, you know, you lived here once. He actually found out that it was an old lady who died on the doorstep and she lived there. He said, you lived here once, but we're living here now. And we have to coexist peacefully. But, if you're ready to move on, and he, in his mind's eye, created a golden doorway for her and invited her through the golden doorway. And after that, they had no problem. And that is really not a non-spiritual person, non-religious as well, but that's how you could do it without fear. Because I said, you just imagine that you can actually see them. Just because they're not on they're on another dimension and you can't see them doesn't mean to say they're not there. So just speak to them as if they're stood in front of you. And I think that helps.
I think communication works over everything. So even if it's a cryptid that somebody saw in the woodlands and they're absolutely terrified of going back in that woodlands, I'll say, like, just have a conversation with them in your head and say, I did not like that. One of the things I'll say is, what would you do if it was a man? So usually if it's happening at home, I say, what would you do if a man walks in your daughter's bedroom? Well, I wouldn't let him. I say, well, you need to put those same boundaries in place and you need to mean it when you say it, and you don't ever frighten my child again. You will. There's nothing as fierce as a mum, so do not ever upset or scare my child again. And then you do it for your grandchildren as well, because they're going to have experiences because it's in blood. But the generation now are so accepting, they have no problem at all. My grandson's 10-year-old and he's already taken reports from his friends of UFOs and scary things that we've seen. And he'd say, oh, you need to talk to my nan, because he's grown up with it. I started my job 15 years before he was born. So he doesn't know anything different. Yeah. And when he was about 3 or 4, I had to go into his bedroom and close it down for him, because he said he kept seeing this hairy wolf that was coming in the room and it was frightening him. And I said to him, right, well, there's something we can do about this. Me and you are going to have a conversation with this wolf tonight. And I made him a besom. I got some mint and some lavender. It's not what you give them. That just gives them. So like Thor has a hammer. It's not the hammer that saves them. It's just they need something they can say, right, this is the power. Kind of puts the control back in.
Yeah.
I said to him, right, I'll make you a besom. We'll hang this up over the bed. I said, he can't come in the room if this is over the bed. And we're going to tell him that. And we're going to say, you're not allowed in this bedroom. And when Zane's 13 or 14, if he changes his mind, then you can come and talk to him. But between now and then, you're not welcome. And that's how we did it. Yeah. Then I ended up doing it for the lad 3 doors down. He was autistic because he was having night terrors. And I did it for him, shot for him. And I said to his mum, whatever he tells you, just accept. Don't say he had a nightmare. Don't brush it off. Just say to him, this does happen, son, and we don't know why. And only last year I spoke to a young man, and he deserves a medal because things have been happening at home. And I said to him, what have you told the children? And he said, I've told them, and what you're seeing is real, and it is being experienced. We just don't understand it. Even adults don't understand it, and I don't know how to explain it to you. And I said to him, I wish you'd have been my parent when I was growing up, because I needed that. He gave that boy permission to say what I saw was real. This really happened to me, and I don't have to go out of my way to prove that.
Yeah.
It's accepted in the same way that whatever a child tells you, you believe, or when they tell you that they've got an imaginary friend, or they tell you that something's coming in their room, you sit and you listen to them and you believe them, and then you find a way of putting the power back in their hand. Whether that's I've given a child a torch before today, and said, if it comes in your room, shine your torch on it and tell him, don't come in my room when I've got this light. It just intensifies the intent. That was the word I was looking for.
Yes.
You need to concentrate that intent. And the object that I give him, like Lily in the stone, that's just so she will concentrate her intent on that. Do not come into my room.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's lovely.
Yeah. I have the best job in the world, don't I? I really do have the best job. No, I do recognise that. I just think every single day is a different day for me. Tomorrow it'll be another case. It'll be a different case.
Well, I think I know you do counselling too. So when you start to be able to bring in some of the, we'll call it shamanic for want of a better word, using the protections, using crystal, the ancient ways, okay, what they probably used to do. You've just added a whole range of things to a toolbox that you didn't have before.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So loads of people are scared, and you try saying to them, well, you wouldn't let a bully into your house to beat up your child, and yet you're letting this unseen being come in and do that and frighten your child. So do what you need to do. Ask it to leave. And the way you ask it to leave is there are, many ways that you can do it, whether you sage, like speaking to it. But I love the way you talk about empowering that child in a good way. You're either with a crystal or lavender or whatever it is. So the child feels empowered. So they actually feel they're in control, because otherwise there's that whole loss of control and fear. And you don't want that growing up.
That I spoke to a lady last week, and she said it was really hard growing up because mum was spiritual and she was into the paranormal. So seeing ghosts around, or what she would call the dead ones, she said, Debbie, they'd turn up and they'd have like their injuries from death. That was fine. But if I saw the fae or I saw something else, it was like I was a witch. And mum got a psychic in to basically depossess her because of the things she was experiencing. She said, I shut myself down at 15 because I just wanted to be a normal teenager, and she just needed mum to say, she said, I could never get the juxtaposition of all of this was wrong. It was witchcraft, but seeing spirit was fine. It was accepted. And I thought, I understand that completely. That must have been really, really confusing growing up. So this is bad. And this is good. And it isn't like that, is it? You get good beings and bad beings in everything. There's nothing out there just positive or just negative. And I mean, obviously, she's a woman in my age now, so she's kind of worked it all out for herself. But I remember saying to her, that must have been so hard growing up, having to deal with that, going forward and shutting yourself down and just really. I don't think she ever really came to until she was an adult and moved out. And she said, I actually saw a fawn, Deb, like a satyr, like Pam, run across. And she said, I saw a little man. When I was she said, when I was a child, leaves had a luminescence. They would twinkle and sparkle. She said, and even as an adult, I can see that. And I thought, you're tuned into the elements. You are tuned into the elements and you can see that energy as it moves between them, So if only I'd have been able to meet a mum back then and say, there's nothing wrong with the child, the child is seeing. Like, those children who see, they'll see New York City and then they can just sit and draw it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
What she was like. So we're talking about a different spectrum of the brain. Your neurodivergent. So another word for weird, what sounds far better, is neurodivergent. We think and experience things differently than your average person. We see things differently, we experience them differently, we were working with different senses. But senses all the same, they're all given, we all got them. So like I'd love in future to do workshops, mate, where I can bring it out of people and say, validate for them, kind of let's make an army of people who just like, I am not weird. This happened. This is how it happened.
So there's so in my sessions I work with people at a younger age who used to cut themselves And you see it time and time again. Like there'll be times where you see people literally all their arms, all the legs, everything has got slashes on. And most of the time with that, it's that the child was possessed and there was literally a demon doing that and embodying that. And a lot of my sessions, not a lot of them, sorry, but the people who have had that, you have to deal with the trauma of that because it really fucked them up. So they're not in the body all the time. They're always anxious, they're always worried. And a lot of people's traumas are from unseen experiences as well, from when they were young, from being haunted or being this and that. So it's important to take into consideration all those different aspects as well.
And the diagnosis. I don't like the diagnosis. I don't like children 7 being diagnosed with anxiety. Natural empaths. So when I was a little girl, if there was a really weird man in the room, it'd be coming off him like so, and I'd be edging to get away from him. But my olders and my betters were saying, "Don't be disrespectful. Go over there and sit on his bed." No, and so they kind of dismissed it in me as a child. So then that gets labelled as anxiety. So I work with young people, as you said, that where they're self-harming or they're thinking of suicide and things like that, because they've been told their entire life there's something wrong with them. And that pill won't fix them. So we basically handed them futile and asked them to live it. So everything that you're experiencing, it's this natural ability, is being shut down. Everything that you know is you're being told it's wrong. And then we expect this child to go out into the world and become a functioning adult while still giving them diagnosis after diagnosis. I've had every diagnosis under the sun. There's nothing wrong with me. There is nothing wrong with me that a pill will fix. It won't fix it. I experience things in a different way, and they are the same. It feels like you want to crawl out of your skin. This skin doesn't fit you because society is the biggest cult in the world. And the minute you step out of line or show one iota of difference, you're strange, you're weird, you're this, you're ADHD, you're this, they are neurodivergent, and give them the power back and say that feeling that you had about that man, you were spot on. Yeah. You were absolutely spot on. That feeling you had when you walked into that room and you felt like you wanted to, that's a real feeling. And we need to celebrate that, not say, have a pill. I've had night terrors my entire life. And only last year before I moved, our dog sleeps on the bed with us. And my husband, I just suddenly wake up in the middle of the night and I'm screaming and I'm fighting. And he'll put his hand on me and I'll calm down and I'll go back to sleep. But my husband said the dog was awake for 20 minutes and it was whining at the door. And it wouldn't take its eyes off the door. He said, and within a split second, it lunged and you shot up in bed. My dog knew I was going to have a night terror. How? Yeah. How? If that's a physical thing that's happening to me, how did the dog know?
Yeah, we had that experience, Deborah, in one of our trainings we were doing. Basically, someone came to see us with a dog, and the dog always acted strange and started barking. And anyone who came near the dog or anybody like that used to growl and get them. And the dog was acting so weird; it was even growling at all the people around him because that lady then had a kind of like an anxiety attack and a breakdown. The dog could pick it up an hour before, and it was looking around like something's going to happen, and all of a sudden. Then it all happened, the breakdown and her
it's not a pill. It's not a pill that'll change that. You know, there's not a medicine on the market that can stop that.
No, pick up the energy.
I've just got to get a drink. It's physically happening to that person, and dogs don't reason it away.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know, only humans do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow. And you get situations with children, and it can be sad because they behave really badly. But actually, it's not the real them. It's whatever is haunting them at the time, whatever they, in their innocence, they've allowed in. You know, because like you said, they're light and something can come to feed off of it, whether it's, you know, like ancestral karma or something like that. And they don't know what to do with the children. And they get worse and worse and worse because they won't actually look at something that's shamanic, that has been used for thousands of years to actually help not just children but people who can get haunted. And
my grandmother, sorry, I didn't mean to jump in there. My grandmother used to see her dad when something bad was going to happen.
Yeah.
And that was accepted. But as a child, I was naughty, because I saw things in my bedroom.
Yeah.
What if it was my ancestors trying to help me because I was frightened?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
You know, it's just generational misunderstanding.
Yeah.
It's sad that, isn't it, when you think about it? If we knew about our ancestors and our connection to them from birth, you know, there's thousands of people that have fell in love for us to be here. If we had an understanding, you don't get that understanding, I don't think, till you later in life. I don't think you appreciate your ancestors in a way when you're younger because you don't know their stories.
No, exactly. And a lot of that has gotten lost. We don't do stories around the fire like we used to, the oral teachings.
And there's
I applaud that, Laura. Exactly that. We don't do that anymore, do we? We don't.
It's like the word. It's always like I see the word, and this is something I've gone over with Andrew loads. Is when you realise there are ancestors, is about bringing them into like the word of your own knowingness, and knowing they are there. Not they might be there, but there's a knowing. And once I experienced my knowingness, it was easy to be able to see them. Like as I shut my eyes, I can see them. There's a spirit guide who comes to see me all the time. He's got he wears like a black suit with a white tie, and he was from my dad's, and he owned a newspaper workshop, and he actually was the father in that lifetime as my daughter now, and he was asking me questions about Opal, and he was and I could see him, and I remember saying to Andrew, this guy's following me around all the time. And he goes, let's have a conversation with him, and he's one of my spirit guides. And then the knowingness came and imagine if we taught that to children about spirits and they grew up with a knowingness. Just imagine what the world was like then.
Yeah, instead of we teach them to run and be scared, and I was scared. I was scared till I was 35. Terrified, absolutely terrified. I made every mistake in the book because I was told to be scared, you know, of it. It was awful and bad things were going to happen, and you know, I'd be condemned and the whole 9 yards, and I had no control over it. I couldn't stop it. There was nothing to make it go away. And then I just get told I was naughty or like I was just exaggerating. So I just shut down and dealt with it on my own. And that's not a healthy way to deal with anything, you know. And I just don't want young kids today going through what I went through and many others, you know. I spoke to the chap when I was talking to you about Biddulph and the wounded wolf. He had that experience. And in 1999, he sits there with his dad, and his dad says to him, you know, when you're walking down near the pools, you never see out strange. And he said, no. And he never told his dad that story. And his dad said to him, when we were kids, the chicken house was open one morning. And we kind of blamed the younger brother for it. He said, but the feathers went into the woodland. So they followed him in there and they couldn't find now normally when a fox kills, it leaves carcasses everywhere, doesn't it? It comes back for him. No carcasses or anything like that. So they decided that night they were going to go down there and they were going to sit and wait it out and shoot it. So we're talking probably like 1950s, 60s, something like that. And they've got Grandad's big greatcoat on because it's absolutely biting wind, he said. And we sit there and we wait and nothing happens. And me dad as a boy, something grabs his brother's coat and pulls it off. And they ran back to the house and they were terrified. And he still didn't tell his dad that he'd had an experience. Couldn't have that conversation.
Wow.
Strange, isn't it? It's really strange how we've kind of locked it up. It's like just Pandora's box. Just put it over there. Do you know what I think it is, Dale? And I get on my soapbox. I think it's so we go to work the next morning. We are completely trapped in this society, aren't we? Yeah. They just want us like blinkered on this one thing. Don't look that way or that way. Don't notice these bad things out there. We need you in work at 6 o'clock in the morning.
There we go.
We need to supply all the answers. You're not allowed to find answers on your own.
All of
that. You rely on us. Then you rely on us, don't you?
If it's all right with you guys, I'm gonna have to pull up.
Yes, so we're going to end the show.
Yeah, we'll wrap it up. So thank you so much, Deborah, for coming on. I was really excited when Laura showed me YouTube a few weeks ago. I was like, this is going to be fun. And again, this is a second show and we'd love to have you on again.
Anytime you want me, just let me know and I'll pop back. And it was lovely meeting you, Amy.
Yes, you too.
I would like to offer an invitation to you guys to come onto my show and do a live stream at some point, if you wouldn't mind.
Lovely. Yeah, we'd love to, and Andrew would too.
Yes.
Yeah, I think I'd really like to listen to your experiences and I'm not talking. I'd love to know more about you guys. So if we could get that started, that'd be
lovely.
Deborah,
Thanks,
how can people get a hold of you if they want you to help them with their own paranormal experiences and speak
if
to
you look up my name on Google, I will pop up. If you put Deborah Hatswell and UK up, I will pop up there. I've sent some links over to Laura that she can pop into the description. I'll send them over again when we finish talking in a minute. My investigation company is called BBR Investigations. I'm on Facebook, I'm on YouTube, I'm on Twitter, I'm everywhere. I'm absolutely everywhere. But just get in touch. My email is debbiehatswell@gmail.com, all lowercase. I've made it that easy for people. Just send me an email, get in touch, leave a comment, and I'll do what I can.
Beautiful.
Lovely.
Amy,
Thanks,
what about yourself?
Yes, everybody can get a hold of me at the UCM community at community.universalcitizentv.com. And me and David Ellis are the admins over there. And we have free resources, meditations, free documents for legal and business, and AI tools, and certified courses that you can take live with us.
Beautiful, Amy. Thank you. And Laura?
Yeah, so you can get a hold of me at laura2feathers@gmail.com. That's with the number 2. I do self-empowerment sessions, take you to your ancestral fire to meet your ancestors, and so on. So using like a variety of shamanic tools, we can get you to a more empowered state of being.
Beautiful.
And you, Dale?
And if anybody would like psychic surgery sessions with myself, if you're feeling tired, drained, or there's something going on and you need a bit of help, head over to daletobin.com. I've also got an up-and-coming psychic surgery soul retrieval workshop. So if you're wanting to look into learning psychic surgery, soul retrieval, how to start scanning your energetic body, how to learn to begin communication to your ancestors, your soul surgeons around you, it will start on the 13th of July on the 14th of July, 6 till 9 p.m. Joel, have we got a picture of the image? Just to give you more of the information, I don't know where that's gone. So the training will, there we go. So the training will include light generation, advanced energy clearing, soul retrieval and entity clearing, learning how to do ancestral balancing in a practitioner format, how to read the client's energy field correctly, chakra recalibration surgery, self-psychic surgery, how to send treatments backwards and forwards in time. So if you've dealt with trauma, you're able to learn how to send treatments back to that past self and start changing the very essence of the past. Also, psychic surgery as a practitioner level as well. So if you're wanting to expand your energetic tools, join the workshop on July the 13th, 14th. And we also have £100 off summer solstice special. So it's only £600 for this life-changing and groundbreaking journey. Thank you. And again, thank you, Deborah. Thank you, Amy. Thank you, Laura.
Thank you.
And
Thanks,
as well,
everybody.
those listening on Rumble or YouTube or anywhere, please drop a subscribe, a comment, a like. And yeah, thank you. Inspiring this. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Debbie. Bye,
Thanks,
everybody.
Debbie.
Bye, guys.
Bye. Bye. Is that charging? Does it say charging? Yes, it is now.